Okay, here we are on the 7th of Kislev, and we're delving into the Tanya again, speaking about mitzvahs particularly, and the supremacy of mitzvahs, ma'asius, deeds in the physical, over everything, because as we learned in today's Hayom Yom, it's the transformation of darkness to light, this piercing through the physical, which contains the highest of godly energies, which, as we said yesterday, is sort of a paradox, right? That the physical is the place where the highest energies of God are encompassed, are contained. And we're going to learn about that today. In Lessons in Tanya, this book, it's on page 323. And in Likutei Amorim, in Hebrew, it's on page 312, the 2 lines up from the bottom. But I'm going to start a little bit before then to just run into this. I'm going to start, where am I going to start? Okay. The Alter Rebbe told us that amongst the mitzvahs, it's a mitzvah to da as elakei avicha, to know God, your Father. And we discussed yesterday that God ultimately is impossible to know. And in fact, he's called in the language of Kabbalah, the Reisha Delay Isyada, the head which is unknowable, or the unknowable head. So we understand him by the process which is called shlila, negativity. We know what we don't know. But that's a mitzvah itself. To know God, da es elokei avicha, is a mitzvah. Even though admittedly we can't, is beyond anything we can know, but that itself is a part of our knowledge, that to know that he is beyond anything we can know. And then is a mitzvah to know him from his behaviors, which is called Seder Histalshelus. And that's, so we have the essence of God, the unknowable head. And then from the unknowable head comes something which we can sort of understand, because it can be understood on human terms. And we'll do it just on human terms. I know you. I know some of you personally. I know others of you just from being on this call, right? But I don't know your essence, and probably no one knows your essence, and maybe you don't even know your essence. There's an essence of you, which is certainly not expressly delivered as it is in your behaviors. Your behaviors come from your essence. And if you go in the Seder, if we now just go back to godliness, we go from atzmos. Atzmos is everywhere and nowhere, meaning everywhere and yet totally intangible and unknowable. But atzmos, so in the language of Kabbalah, contracts itself, makes it simsum, and that simsum allows for the emergence of things which have individuality. And from there comes down the whole Seder Hastalshelus. And the Alter Rebbe told us yesterday that knowing the behaviors, the Seder Histalshelus, is a mitzvah, is amongst the mitzvahs. So actually I've said what I would have read otherwise, so I'm not going to go back and read it. We'll start today, 2 lines up from the bottom. Okay, but just want to make sure that we're clear on that. That da es elokei avicha, know your God, and know him at root from the fact that he's unknowable, and that his effusions become more knowable. And that itself is a mitzvah. In addition, shebe'emes habirun shebibiyam rapach al yedei Torah u'mitzvahs. Now he starts a topic which we have not really touched on, and we have in earlier parts of Tanya, but in this section, this that God invests his very essence in things and in the Torah, as we said yesterday, Ana nafshi kosvis yahavis, I have given my very soul, my very essence into the Torah, is for the purpose of rectification. What do you mean rectification? Rectification means that this world essentially is the world which requires fixing. What's the fixing? The fixing is, as we're about to talk about, a subject which is talked about often in Hasidus, but we haven't really hit it head on. We will right now, which is the breaking of the vessels in the world of Tohu. One of the reasons that that it's understood and taught that the reason the Torah begins with a Beis, if this is the creation, why doesn't it begin with an Aleph? Is because it's really the second order of things, which we're about to go into. Shebe'emes habirurim shebebiyah, the rectifications, the whole world that we know of from Atzilus on down, that's the world we talk about, is the world of rectifications, rectifying something which happened, it's hard to say this, previously, at a different level. The Birurim Shebebiyah, the rectifications of Bria, Yitzira, and Usia, Mirapach from the 288. 288 are the number of so-called sparks, and little sparks that sparked off from godliness and fell apart. And the mashal I use for this is a campfire. You sit at the campfire, you're looking at the fire, and you can watch little sparks fly off from it. They contain light, but they're at a distance, right? They're no longer part and parcel of the whole campfire. They spark off. There are 288 sparks, and these sparks fall down, down, down. This is all metaphorical, of course, fall down, down, down into this world. And in this world, they fall down as a spark will. When a spark goes out, all you see is the little crumb of the wood that sparked off from the log. But these sparks have light within them. And the light within them is the light that's meant to be exposed. The light, we call it in the language of Hasidus, the light from darkness. The darkness is like that little clump of wood. It doesn't show any light anymore. But this little spark has godliness contained within it in a very compressed way. Without going into it all, we have a beautiful mashal for this in today's science, which is dark matter. Dark matter is light so intense that it becomes totally embedded and appears as darkness. But when darkness, and we have phenomena that have been measured by science today that see the explosion of, or the turning inside out of dark matter, and it reveals a light which is greater, much greater than the light that was before, i.e., a physical example of the advantage of light which comes from darkness. So embedded in the sparks down here in the world of Tikkun, the world which means rectification, are those high, deep lights of the world of Tohu. And the way they are rectified, that is, the way they come forth, is by transforming darkness into light, meaning by taking a physical object and infusing it with holiness by saying a bracha on it, and then utilizing it and giving us the nourishment to utilize it for the performance of God's will. And these are the parachas, back to, and I've explained now like 3 words. The rectification of these sparks, in order to bring forth this intense light which is hidden in the darkness, is al yedei Torah and Mitzvos, is through Torah and Mitzvos. And by the way, I just, if you do have questions, interrupt me, because this is fairly dense stuff, and I'm trying to bring it forth in a manner that we'll walk away at least, okay, sort of get it, and hopefully do get it. So, the rectification of these sparks from the world of Tohu comes through Torah and Mitzvos. The machshava dibra ma'aseh. How do you do Torah and Mitzvos? You have Mitzvos of thought, you have Mitzvos of speech, you have Mitzvos of action. Now, these Mitzvos, gavayhin b'shorshon, they are higher in their level. Where do they come from? They're joined to God Himself, right? Mitzvot savto v'chibor. That's the language. Mitzvot savto metzava v'chibor, connected with God Himself. They come from a very high place, higher than minaran sheba adam, than the nefesh ruach or neshama of a person, because they are misag. They are from the name of God, which in numeration comes out to 63 letters. So there are many, we've talked about this, and I just have to bring it to the table briefly, hopefully. This is a deep subject, a long subject, but the name Yud Ke Vav Ke can be spelled out in many ways. If you spell it out by adding Heys, for instance, Yud Hey, and you spell Hey, Hey Yud Hey, you add a Hey, you get the name of 45, which is, you get the name of Ban, 52. In other words, Yud is 10, Hey is 5, right? Vav is 6, etc. But if you spell it out with Heys, you'll get the Shem Ban, which is 52, and Ban is gematria Behema. So this is godliness as it expresses itself in the power of the animal. The raw animus of existence is the Shem Ban. Ma is 45. Ma is gematria Adam. Adam is gematria 45. And Ma is lower than Ban, 45, 52, right? So it's lower. So this alludes to the precedence of this world of Tohu, which is a very animalistic, meaning very animal is power, strong power, the power to lift the man. So when the animal gets embedded in the man, when a man takes his animal soul or her animal soul and utilizes that animal power, that power of Ban, the power of the animal, lifts the man up. So that's the what's going on here. That the mitzvahs themselves, they are, we'll say this word, Gavayin Meshorshim and Neran Sheba Adam. They're higher than the soul of a man because they come from the Shem Sag. Sag is 63, which is even higher than 45, or 52. So the Penimius Adam Kadmor. So the same Sag in Kabbalah is 2 times horse. Samak, the horses, if you spell it out, is 72, and this is the same Sag, 63. And so the horse is the epitome of the animal which can lift the man. The man rides on the horse. So this is all a Kabbalistic expression of the thought which we had before, which is the sparks from the world of Tohu, the sparks that are higher than man, are embedded, they fall down into the level of the second creation, and that's the rectification. So that's the rectification. We're rectifying the Rapach Nitzutzi, the 288 sparks of Tohu, through the 613 mitzvahs. And the way of fixing, the way of rectification is through Ma, which is Gematria Adam. Which this Shem Ma, this is pure Kabbalistic talk, now emanates from the forehead of God, so to speak, the upper level of his face, right? The face of God, the forehead is the upper level of the face, which is a Ora Ba'alma. It's a ray of light which emanates from a very deep high source. This is all Kabbalistic talk about the nature of the godly energy which has fallen down and is inherent in physical things, well, thought, speech, and action, our holy thought, speech, and action. And when we grab a hold of the mitzvah that encompasses or that expresses the thought, speech, and action, we're taking a hold of the sparks of Tohu and we're releasing them through the process of performing the mitzvahs. And this is what Lifnei Mulaich Melech. We'll find at the end of Parshas Vayishlach in Bereshis, the Edomite kings. The Edomite kings, they reigned Lifnei Mulaich Melech Yisrael. He doesn't use the word, put the word Yisrael on the table. They reigned before the Jewish king. The kings of Tohu reigned before the Jewish kings. for high timer, and for this reason, sha'adam chai b'mezonis datzach. Okay, and this is, well, it's just so packed with conceptual stuff. Unpacking it, I wish we had an hour and a half to unpack all this. All right. So the reason, this is a secret that many people have not even thought about. How is it that a man, how is it that a man lives from things which are lower than he in the totem pole, right? In the totem pole of Histalshlus, you have Odom, and you have animal, human, animal, plant, inanimate. That's how it goes, right? But we get our life from the inanimate. Again, contradiction, paradox, right? Someone mentioned yesterday. I came away thinking, I come away from most of this with a little cliche that I say to myself: wherever you find paradox, you'll find God. God is in the unknowable and the seemingly contradictory. And the Chachamim, the Kabbalists say about God that He is the one who's Soibel Hafochim. He is the one who can carry paradox. So He creates a world of paradox, meaning that the highest at the beginning is wedged in the end. Essence, you'll find it down here below. That's why the dirt, the earth, has the power to give forth plants which contain energy, which nourishes animals, which nourishes man. So though we are the top of the heap, the energy comes from bottom up because the essence is embedded in the lowest. So this is the high time. For this reason, the high mazoin is why food can sustain us. That high mazoin is that tzach, because the levels of high, of tzemach, of growth, of vegetative, and the animals. How is that? Because they get rectified by eating the animals. The plants get rectified by eating the energy that comes from the earth. The animals get rectified. Rectified here means get nourished, get health from the plant, from the plants. They eat the plants, and so do we. And we get rectified from all that. The sacham and bottom b'ma. And we are the ultimate rectifiers because we take all the three previous levels into us, right? The power that's in the earth, the power of growth which is in the earth, the initial growth from the earth, which is plant, and the animal. We take all three of those and we digest them and internalize them, which is a metaphor for mervaring them, for rectifying them. There's a lot here, right? Simple eating, a metaphor for rectifying of all the creation. And we live for the life which from the life force which is within them. The Fisha Sag. And how is it that we live from that life? Because Shem Sag, the lights of Toihu, have fallen down deeper, and they're the highest light, and therefore we live from them. This is all of this is a metaphor for Biran Hanetzutzim, for rectifying all of these fallen sparks. And in addition, to Mr. Kislev, it's written, God says, I think to Moses, not sure, he says, my face you will never see. The innermost parts of the supernality, it can't come down to below, Rak Chitzoinius, only the externality of it. And the backside of it. That's what's manifest down here below. But essence of God is in everything, as we know from Ein Od Bilvado. There's nothing besides Him. But the way things appear and make their appearance on the stage is only through the externality, the beams of light which have beamed out into innumerable and infinite form from and encompassing and holding within them the singular point of light of God Himself. So all these things which come out, all these worlds, all the things that we call stuff, even spiritual stuff, are only nevles chokhmah. They're the drippings out of chokhmah. Nevles refers specifically to the dried fruit. Nevles are dried fruit which stays on the vine and then it drops down to the ground. So that's a metaphor for what the whole world, all of we call Chachma, wisdom, God's wisdom, which is the beginning of the whole Seder Stalshalis, is like a dried fruit that falls to the ground compared to the essence, the rich, undefinable, unknowable essence which is within it. So it's only Naivel's Chachma, of the supernal Chachma. But in addition, when one speaks words of Chachma, in other words, when we speak words of Torah, when we speak these words and that are formed and invested in and are expressions of God's Chachma, they don't give birth. Speech doesn't give birth. So we're going to go now to a metaphor of how does something get birthed from? It gets birthed from an ineffable, undefinable, intangible, in the words of biology, seminal drop, which bears no resemblance whatsoever to the outcoming fruit. It unifies with an egg. Neither of those have any resemblance to what's going to be born from them. But that union of sperm and egg, that union of God's point of Chachma with Malchus, right, is what's going to evolve and devolve into something which bears no resemblance to it, which is a physical human being. So the words of speech, the words are just coming from his mouth. They're already something created. They don't have the power to give birth. The hatipa and the seminal drop, which is drawn from the vessel of Chochma Elah. That's why Chochma is a point. It's a pictogram. It's a pictogram. It's a visible expression of that seminal drop of godliness. Yesh bo koyach hamoil. That has power within it to give birth. And it brings things into being from nothing to something. And even the supernal Chachma is included within it. Now, I'm hoping that, I just want to repeat, if you do have questions, if it's just confusing, I'll try to say something that will unconfuse you. But admittedly, this is a lot of words coming from my mouth because there's a lot to understand this. But do speak up. The reason for this is, the reason that this looks like nothing kind of thing, because it comes from the ayin. It comes from the nothing. It comes from that which really is everything, that's so everything that we call it nothing. Another paradox, right? Yesh me'ayin. Something, we call this something, the stuff down here, but this is really nothing compared to the ayin, which is really something, right? Because that's the power of life. But we call that power of life nothing because in its state of as a koyach, as a power, it's not tangible. It's not anything. So the reason is in that seminal drop, this metaphorical seminal drop, nimshach mahus ve'atzmusa dehachma Elah, is enclosed the essence of God's supernal Chachma, the essence of His Chachma. Masha'en ken b'diber, as we said, thought doesn't give, speech doesn't give birth, because speech, u'machshava, and even thought, afilu behaskalas haseichel be'eza Chachma, even the deepest thought that you're going to have, this intellect, this wisdom, it's not really wisdom, because wisdom implies you're wise, you know everything. This level of intellect called Chachma is only a ray which comes from the essence of the seichel, in the very essence of the soul. And this ha'ora, this ray of light from the essence of the soul, that itself is rak levush, is only a garment lemahusa v'atzmusa shel haseichel, to the essence of the intellect. V'haseichel hu ha'ora v'levush lemahusa nefesh, and the seichel is a garment to the essence of the soul. So, we can speak about the seminal point of chachma, of wisdom, but we need to know that that seminal point of wisdom itself is a minuscule expression of the allness and the ayin which is above it, which is the unknowable, which is, we call it nothing because it's unknowable. Or in the language that I quoted earlier from Kabbalah, the head which is not known. Seichel, Chachma, is known, but it has a source which is unknown. And why we're learning this, by the way? Number one, because it's a mitzvah to know all this. And the number two, in order to have a sense of that which we can have no understanding, to have a sense of it, a palpable sense of that which is beyond our intellect. Now that all that essence gets embedded in this and contracted in this little drop, this tipa, this drop, nimshah is drawn from it. Gam imahus hanefesh, it comes from the essence of the soul. There's a little metaphor going on here comparing the soul to God. The soul has 5 layers, right? And God expresses himself in layers. And then there's the essence of the soul, which is unknowable, the essence of ourselves. Well, we don't even know our own essence. What we know is the expression, we could also use an old metaphor, layers of consciousness. There's a total unconscious level beyond consciousness within us. We call it the unconscious. And then there's the conscious, where there is. So similarly, there's the unknowable head, which is God himself. And then there's the effusions and the dilutions, so to speak, which come out from there. Now, Shenken Hatipa, the seminal drop, which is drawn, Gamim Mahusa Nefesh, from the essence of the soul. This is taking on the human plane, the seminal drop coming forth from the essence of the soul. The Atzmusa, in the very essence of what the soul is. Amalubeshes b'moichin, and it gets enclosed in the brain. Velochen melida b'daimela. It's able to bring forth something which is similar to it. In other words, it gives birth on the human plane to a child, which also has an essence. The essence goes through many levels of contraction. This is true in the humans, right? The seminal drop, the egg, right? Very contracted level of life force, and comes down and down and down and down until it hits the womb, where it starts to reveal something that never had been there before. It's like if you take an egg and open it up and look at the yolk, you could never imagine that this could become a chicken. So similarly, this seminal drop in union with the egg, if you looked at that, you could never imagine the child which is going to come from it. But the child does come from it. And the child recapitulates this whole structure again and again. The child, and this is the structure which is similar to the structure from which it was created. It also has the capability of encapsulating its essence in a seminal drop in an egg, etc. And this is the difference between the service of angels, and here comes another metaphor. Angels are coming into existence from a kiss, in the shichin, the kissing of the neshamas which come out from the vessels. Achakelim themselves, but the vessels of Atzilus, that becomes the soul. So the kiss is a somewhat intimate expression, but there's a deeper intimate expression. The hilchach, the chilav erechim stichlim, therefore, fear and love, intellectual fear and love, and kamalachim, intellectual fear and love, and kamalachim denashichim, they're like the angels, the midos that we have, which are way down on the chain from seminal drop, which is way down on the chain from essence. Midos are, in the structure, we have the revealed structure. It starts with Chabad, right? Chochma Bina Das, that's the revealed structure. And Midos are even lower on the chain. So that's coming from a sort of lower level of intimacy, which we call kissing. And the Malachim, they're like the Malachim, the Meshichim Ha'ores Chetzonius Chabad, which comes from the externality of Chabad. So Chabad, Chochma Bina Das, gives something to the Midos. That's the externality of Chabad. The internality of Chabad is connected with the essence of God himself up above, the point of the Yud, the hook of the Yud up above. But the lower part comes down. The externality of Chabad comes into the lower worlds beyond. The time, and the reason is Mishum the Penimius Chabad, because the inner part of Chabad, it's amazing how he goes, he changes metaphors like 1, 2, 3 from line to line. Now we're talking about the metaphor of the structure of godliness coming from essence to expression, the way our essence comes to the first point of expression in Chokhmah, in ourselves, right? And from Chokhmah of, now go back to God, in the worlds, only the externality of Chabad, which comes into the lower worlds. The Hatam, and the reason is, Yishum the Panimius Chabad, because the inner dimension of Chabad, Umahusoi v'atzmusoi, and its very essence, Shel Or Panimi, of the inner light, and Yochel is Galus. Etzem is there in everything, but it's not revealed. It can't be revealed, because Etzem is unbounded beyond the realm of both revelation and concealment. It just is the unknowable head. But it certainly can't be revealed, because that's it, what revealed, Elokus, godliness is revealed. God, as he does only God can do this, contract himself into some knowable, feelable, present entity. But the essence can't be. Just like, or similar to, we're created in God's image. There's a lot to learn from that. And one of the things is, if relevant to today's Tanya, that we have an essence, a core, which we don't even understand or have a presence of ourselves, our very essence. What we have a presence and an understanding of and a perception of is the effusion from our essence. So the Or Panimi, Eni Yochel is Galus, the innermost light, is not able to be revealed, Ela Al Yedei HaOras HaKelim, only through some kind of vessels, just like we reveal ourselves through some kind of vessels of thought, vessels of speech, vessels of action, vessels of emotion. Only through the Kalim. Hayordim Lamata, which the Kalim are lower instantiations of godliness, they descend down below, just like the Tipa Adam, like the seminal drop of a person, descends from the brain, Akamasha Kosev, and again, as it's written, and this is like a signature to this little piece of music that we've been learning today, Uponai let yuro, my face, my panemius, God says, you will never see. It's today's Tanya. And where is that panemius that we'll never see embedded? In mitzvahs. The beginning is wedged in the end.
So I hate to bring it up again, but doesn't this actually tell us that we cannot know God? We can know Torah, we can know mitzvahs, we can know about the actions and
it's a mitzvah to know that you can
learn as much as you can.
No, it's a mitzvah to know
that. Yes, fine. Okay, good.
It's a mitzvah to know.
Fine.
Mitzvah to know the whole Seder is also.
But then the goal is not. We have to accept. Okay, but the goal is not to accept. I know God. God and I are like on first name basis. We're close. We're good. We're good buddies. It's great. But I can't comprehend. That's fine. Okay. Just wanted to come back to that because it just seemed just on point.
The goal is to mevarim netzutzim, to reveal the darkness. That's the goal.
I mean, and you see the note. I would like, and you can continue to do this for the 30 days to make our learning Liyata Neshama for Yisrael Benjamin Ben Avraham.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I told Sarah that we're doing that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Till we meet again. We meet Hashem tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Amen.